بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مساء الخير. يشرفني اليوم وأنا أجلس أمامكم في منبر مضيء للعلم والثقافة والإبداع، منبر مؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان التي أصبحت نموذجا للفكر القيادي والابتكار، أن أرحب بضيفنا القدير الدكتور شاهد محمود من باكستان الشقيقة. ونحن اليوم على موعد مع أسئلة جوهرية مثل: ما مدى استعداد العالم الإسلامي لمواجهة تحديات العصر؟ وما هو الطريق نحو مجتمع يتقبل ويحتضن الابتكار؟ ثم كيف يمكننا السير نحو طريق الحداثة والتطور؟ وما هي الآليات التي يتم على أساسها استشراف مستقبل الثورة الصناعية الخامسة؟ حول هذه الظروف والتحديات التي تواجه عالمنا الإسلامي يأتي حديث الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة إنتراكتف الدكتور شاهد محمود، مع تركيزه على أهمية الثورة الصناعية الخامسة والذكاء الاصطناعي وكيفية ازدهار العالم الإسلامي من خلال الانفتاح على الابتكار والتكنولوجيا. يسلط ضيفنا الكريم الضوء هذا المساء على الاحتياجات الماسة للمجتمع باستخدام تكاملي لنظم الاتصالات لدعم قطاعات الصحة والتعليم والسلامة العامة. ومحدثنا حاصل على درجة دكتوراه في علوم الكمبيوتر من جامعة كوفنتري، وعلى درجة الماجستير في الدراسات الدفاعية والاستراتيجية من جامعة الدفاع الوطني، وكذلك شهادة البكالوريوس في الهندسة من جامعة NED الباكستانية. حصل على العديد من الجوائز وعلى زمالة آيزنهاور كزميل متميز تقديرا تشجيعي على نهوض صناعة الاتصالات وتكنولوجيا المعلومات في الباكستان. وهو رجل أعمال مليء بالحماسة، مستقبلي إنجاز التعبير، داعم للمشاريع الموجهة نحو الصحة والشباب. كما أن ضيفنا المميز لديه شغف في تعليم اليافعين والأطفال وتطوير معارفهم في التوجهات التكنولوجيا الأكثر حداثة. لديه مشاريع عدة لخدمة المجتمع وتمكينه، منها مجتمع البراق للكواكب ومستشفى زبيدة خالق المجاني وغيرها من المشاريع الهادفة. ولديه العديد من الأبحاث في مجال تحليل البيانات الكبيرة ومنشورات تركز على الأهمية النابعة من استخدام البيانات الكبيرة في القرن ال21 وتحويلها إلى نمط حياة والمخاطر المترتبة على ذلك. وكما قال ابن خلدون: يوزن المرء بقوله ويقوم بفعله، وفي كلا الحالتين نجح ضيفنا قولا وفعلا. So I'll switch into English, Shahid, now. A very brief introduction, and I will moderate the session in Arabic if you don't mind. You don't need the headset now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend my warmest welcome to all of you. I'm humbled to have been given the great privilege of introducing and welcoming our guest of honor and speaker today, Dr. Shahid Mahmud. It gives me great pleasure to specially welcome our distinguished guest to an esteemed organization that I'm honored to be affiliated with. Shoman Foundation has over the past few years established itself as a beacon of knowledge, innovation, and social change. Dr. Shahid holds a PhD in computer science from Coventry University in the UK. His master's degree was in defense and strategic studies. He holds an engineering degree from NED University in Pakistan. He has more than 31 years of professional experience, then don't be fooled by his looks, young looks, in the field of ICT. He is the CEO of Intitractive, a forward-looking technology company that provides technology solutions across the whole IT spectrum, including power infrastructure, systems, networks, storage, communications, and complex software systems. In recognition for his great efforts in promoting IT in Pakistan, Dr. Mahmoud was awarded the Lifetime Achievement at the 12th Teradata National IT Excellence Awards for 2014. When asked about his company's motto, our renowned guest said, "It's fulfilling hope." This indeed is significant, particularly at a time where societies all around the world are faced with unique challenges. We are all in desperate need for discoveries, and innovations in all areas of our lives. Our established speaker is very serious about his role in solving the pressing issues of Pakistani society through technology solutions. He has achieved excellence by offering both products and services that are innovative, creative, and user-centric. He is a pivotal player in progressing Pakistan's society, where he has been keen to help tech young adults and children space education and increase their knowledge on technological trends. Aside from his talents and advocacies, Dr. Mahmud is a well-published author. Thus, we have a lot to learn from him today, and I'm sure you cannot wait for him to share his knowledge, views, and most importantly, success stories and lessons learned. Shahid, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Umar. Thank you, Shoman Foundation. Thank you, Valentina, for having me here. It is indeed a great honor and a privilege to be speaking at this forum. I've read about the every Monday lectures that you have. I never thought that I myself would be sitting here one day and speaking to you. The subject that I chose is very close to my heart. It takes, can I have my presentation? It takes some time to try and grasp it. But what I'll try and do in the next 35, 40 minutes is to take you through an AI speed run through the various things that I think we should all be looking at, and then I'll be more than happy to answer questions. If I was to simply put my next 35 minutes talk, I would phrase it in one sentence. Future is in the head and in the air. When I say this, it is all created by motivation. If we have motivation and if we think we can achieve something, we end up achieving it. And this is the beauty of being humans. When God said we are ashraful makhluqat, it was simply said because we are always resilient in achieving what we feel and set our minds to. And this is where I think what Shoman Foundation does in bringing together science and culture and innovation is what takes me to the start of the journey. If we go back in the Islamic Golden Age, we see that in the 18th century, the Abbasites were very good with technology advancements, with cultural openness. They had an inclusive practice and rationale of the region and observations of the region. This in itself led them to be the hub, and what we did with that was unfortunate that we lost that wisdom to the West when the West was in the dark ages. And as a science and an engineering ones and zeros guy, I'm always looking at patterns. So you have to look at history and you have to look at patterns to understand what the course correction has to be. And I'll try and sort of do that. So when we end the siege of Baghdad and the era of our golden age, there are several things that we can learn from history within that, and those I call the patterns that we're looking at. And they were summed up very well by Dr. Monif from Jordan when he said that we have lost appreciation of science. And this, unfortunately, is something that we have to revisit, because as we progress in time, it will become very essential for us as Muslims, as people from this region, and in the regions that we are all going to be in, that we start contributing back to the science field, because it will become mandatory on us once again. Moving in this direction, we see that technology is today moving at a speed of 12 months to 18 months. So the bandwidth doubles every 12 months, the storage capacity doubles every 12 months, the chipsets are going down to sizes every 12 months. And at this speed at which technology is moving, there is a lot of things that we need to bear in mind. The other thing we have to see is, in the world today, if you Google the top companies in the world, they are no more the oil companies. They are companies that are playing around with data, and there are companies who understand data as the new oil and AI, artificial intelligence, as the new electricity. These two combinations are what is going to lead us into the 21st century. When we talk about AI, everybody gets very worried. Artificial intelligence, oh my God, and we see the Hollywood vision of artificial intelligence. Cyborgs are going to take over, robots will be ruling the world. Well, let me on the start and the onset, clear that perception. So when we talk about AI, what we are trying to do is augment the human. Augmenting the human, Ashraf al-Makhluqat, is not a very simple thing to do. We may be geniuses in what we've achieved, but there is a long way to go. So we are trying to do the social intelligence, we're trying to do the emotional intelligence, and we're trying to do the intellectual intelligence based out of machines and machine learning. This is what basically we're trying to do in AI, as simple as I could put it. And as we have moved as humans, from the age where we were in caves, hunting, then we moved to agri-business. From agri, we went into industrial steam engines. And now we're moving into what I call the 5.0, or what is known as the fifth wave, which is going to be a society that is completely linked wirelessly. That's why when I said future is in our head and in the air meaning that everything that we will have is going to be connected. So if you Google, it will start telling me that, oh, you're going to Amman, you have to go to Petra. You have to do this. I didn't even ask Google that I was going to Amman. But because it read my booking that I was coming to Amman, the algorithms start generating marketing materials so that I benefit from my knowledge and also the tourism industry of Jordan. When you look at this and you look at any app that you download, they take permissions, they start tracking you, they start evaluating you through algorithms. And when you see the Internet of Things, this is where everything that we are moving with is connected, and it is doing a profiling on you, trying to understand you better. And when we see that, every 60 seconds, we generate all the data that you can see on the screens, may it be Google, Instagram, any of the social media platforms. 3.6 billion people connected, generating in 60 seconds that kind of data, and 2.5 exabytes of data per day. Now, when you say exabyte, I won't go into the technicality, but let me show you what this 2.5 exabyte really means. The human body is such a beautiful system made by God that we have different cells, blood cells, we have muscle cells, but all of these cells coordinate and organize themselves within the human body. And within the human body, the miracle of science that we can now study and understand, and I can see the excellency here having the health background, 1 gram of human DNA can store 455 exabytes of data, 1 gram. So at 2.5 exabytes per day generated with all the technology that we have, just visualize 2.5, 455 exabytes in 1 gram. There is a lot that we have to pick up, and there is a lot that we have to achieve before we get anywhere when it comes to AI and the tools that are around it. So the fifth wave is going to be about population, it is going to be about data, and it is going to be about the next generation technologies and how we harness them. Now, it is all, again, up to our imagination, how we want to use them, and up to our conscience on how we want to address them. So as a neural networks guy, we're always looking for patterns. And when I looked at patterns from our Islamic history, I saw that we capitalized with open hearts, with wanting to gather wisdom from the Greeks, the Persians, the Romans, the Chinese, and the Indians. And that was where the Abbasid got what was called our golden age. While we lost that, we see that progress went back into the industrial age and the wisdom went to the West. When they were in the dark ages, they were now and are currently in the forefront. We see that they are now also regressing, and it is after the modern civilization, we see India and China becoming the next players. So the question arises, how come, what is it that we did wrong, or what is it that we didn't understand that the West got triggered themselves in the right direction, but also didn't get, and yet the Indians and the Chinese got. So this is the kind of patterns that we as the scientists / engineers try and look for. So when I looked deeper into, I can't go into all the details that we discussed, I'll just highlight a few. So the rise of China and India, I was shocked that here are these two nations that are progressing because their state, not the private sector, not the capitalist, the state is investing in all their infrastructure and development. And when you look at that development, China is doing it at 23.5% per annum, and India is doing it at 21. And when you look at the US, it is in the negative, 1.4, and the private sector is at 1.2. And when you look at the impact on the GDP growth, China is at 83% and India is at 52, whereas everybody else is struggling. So here comes the question that what is it that you do in the state that gets you going in the direction that they are with the economic strength that they are developing? It is the confidence between them and the public. And one thing that came out very clearly is how they are tackling corruption within their own societies. By virtue of addressing corruption and giving equal opportunities to the private sector, in state-run enterprises and thought through 100-year plans, they are able to achieve much more than what we have been able to achieve. But now let's take another pattern. Majority of this progress till date is happening in Asia, and the top cities are there in the mark that I'm showing you, India and China. But as we progress in the next 82 years, this also moves to Africa. And when you look at the combination of Asia and Africa, we see that these two, Asia and Africa, will actually entail, in the next 82 years, 82% of the global population, 82%. China is leading the way, while the US, in its current stance, is not doing very well economically, but is also going to end up as North America, Canada and all of North America total, 4%. 4%. 27 countries of Europe, all told together, 6%. 10% of the world is going to be focused in Europe and the West as we see it today. But when you look at it from Asia and the African perspective, 82%. How many of us are actually studying African cultures? How many of us are studying what is happening? And for a Pakistani, when I looked at the population base, this is another thing that by 2030, Pakistan will be the largest Muslim state because we will have a 256 million population. We are already at 210. But what became more fascinating to me is a state like India is going to be the largest Muslim state in the world by 2050. Now you put all of these 10 together and you see where are they positioned. So Asia Pacific, how much do we understand about cultures, imagination, work ethics, and the societies of these areas? And the next is Middle East and North Africa, 20%. And Sub-Saharan Africa, 17.6%. This is where the Muslims will be. But the biggest challenge that comes to me as a human is every fourth person is going to be a Muslim. So we need to take the burden of the earth and the society with that spirit, that if every fourth person, or 26.6% by 2030, is going to be a Muslim, are we really contributing back to humanity in that fashion? Because if we are, then the numbers should show that we are. I sit as a co-chair in Pakistan for something which is called the Millennium Project. It is currently working in 64 countries. We together call ourselves the one think tank that looks at humanity, and it's looking at different scenarios. Within that 2050 study, we did 3 scenarios. One was complicated mix, nobody does anything, the current projections are left, business as usual, stupidity is allowed to function, corruption is allowed to function. We adopt things without understanding the power of technology, and we let unemployment go in whichever direction. The next scenario was that while we are failing in all of this, we allow artificial intelligence to have its impact in the negative. And by 2050, unemployment will explode. By virtue of the unemployment, there will be chaos from terrorism to all the kinds of factors that you can think of. and there will be serious polarization on the earth. And the third scenario was that what if we understand the technology, we want to take a grip of it, we look at it in how we can use technology to harness and address the needs of the 1 billion people we keep adding every 12 years to the earth and its resources. How do we rebuild them? What do we achieve? And the result of the three scenarios was that the third scenario gives us hope. But within that hope, it also shows us what will be the future trends. So the hope being, we will have 1 billion people employed. Self-employed will be 3 billion. When we talk about self-employed, this is where the skill sets of how our schooling systems and universities are teaching today have to completely change. And I will address that as we go on. The unemployed will be the least, 1 billion in the best case scenario, and the informal gray area where corruption will never go will still be 1 billion. So the artificial intelligence and its role, and when we look at it, how the countries are using it, the $80 trillion economy of the world is effectively using AI in the Western world today. But that effectiveness is about understanding the local cultures and everything else, and it still leaves a big area untapped. But we also see that Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines have started using this. But what came to my pattern recognition search was the most amazing factor that Colombia, Mexico, and Nigeria were also looking at AI, and not only these countries. In the last 15 months, if we take countries like from Canada down to UAE and the UK, each one of them have come out with their strategies and are looking for it. What really made me worried that we as 57 Muslim countries, we were nowhere there with great strategies, except the UAE has come up with some strategies. Everybody is talking about it, but the detailed strategies that these people have come out with, again, takes them into the realm of understanding technology. But I think where they're missing is understanding the local culture and how we are driven as humans. And that is where we need to understand what were the considerations. Their focus is on education. Their focus is on government, anticipatory governance, for which you will need open data, open source, complete transparency. Wow, that is a challenge in our parts of the world. The next one is how they use science and technology, robots, nanotechnologies, and something which is synthetic biology, which people are not understanding. So imagine the DNA that I talked to you about, 1 gram of DNA, 455 exabytes of data. But this is the natural DNA as humans we have. We are currently working in science and technology in an area which is called synthetic biology. Synthetic biology is, I take the best of different DNAs and put it together to make a new species. Imagine that world. And from a cultural standpoint, we need to understand, because we need, if harmony has to come, we need to understand each other culturally much better. And that is how business roles will develop. So it's not talk. The Chinese have already developed with their nuclear power an energy resource which is called MAC, which is there trying to develop energy. They have developed the Hyperloop, which is doing 350 miles in 35 minutes. As transportation, it's already being tested. So we will move humans from one place to the other at speeds of 1,200 kilometers an hour without an issue. That will entail new businesses, new ways of thinking. NASA is already up there in Mars doing their research. We have, in the space station, the first flower that came up. We've already looked at vegetation. We're working in not only in Mars, but at the Antarctic, trying to develop different species of plants, looking at minus 100 Fahrenheit. This is all happening. And at current rate, with IBM developing the chip of this size, imagine every 12 months this goes smaller and smaller and smaller. And very soon, humans will have what will be called augmented nanotechnology with synthetic biology in them. And when I say this, I say it with a lot of confidence, because people just don't understand that we are currently today using augmented technology. If I take my glasses off, I can't see you very clearly, but I put them on, I can see you. So this is augmented by virtue of just my eyes. When I start augmenting all my other physical capacities, I will have a knowledge base which is going to take me to another level. How do you control that knowledge base is the real science. So what is our North Star? What do we have to look at? We know that robots and computers and humans are in a blur position. We know that the wealthier are getting wealthier. So where do we go? Where do we find? How do we inspire our future generations? Is it all gone? So the Millennium Project looked at in 64 countries with like-minded people looking at humanity and said, these are the 15 challenges. All of these challenges cross-relate with each other also. But if we can fix these 15 challenges, clean water, population, global decision-making, rich-poor gap, global ethics, peace and conflict, we can get somewhere. And the question is not how do we work together, the question is what is it that we are not asking ourselves as questions, because unless and until you don't have that imagination, you don't have that thinking, it's not going to go very far. And one of the things that I loved about Shoman Foundation is the focus you have on libraries and teaching kids. Because in my life, one lesson that I've learned, it's always go and ask a kid, how does he feel about 2100? And he'll give you a very nice picture. You ask an old man like me, we know too much, and we're always trying to teach something that we either made mistakes ourselves or we don't want the children to make mistakes, so we always guide them in, oh, don't do this, don't do that. We have to let them think. We have to let them imagine. We have to let them go, because it is with their imagination that we will progress. But when we go to our universities, I was completely taken aback to see that King Abdul Aziz University was the only one which was in the 200, 250 range. We don't have a single university in the 100 range. And this is worrisome to me, not because King Abdul Aziz University is getting Nobel Prize winners and we have that going. No. This worries me is because if the focus is going to be Asia and Africa, if the focus of every fourth person being a Muslim is going to be in that part of the world, we need to start having universities that are of standard, that can start addressing this problem like we had in the era which we called our golden age in the Abbasid world, 8th to the 13th century. We have to be open, we have to get this thing going, or we will not do justice to humanity as Muslims. I saw the R&D, shocking. Malaysia spends 1.3% of their GDP, whereas Sweden, a small country, spends 3.3. When you look at the R&D researchers per million people, they have 6,800. The best we have is Malaysia, 2,200. So we need to start working. It's not going to happen. We look at their publications, their expenditures, and we see another pattern here, that China is still leading the game in this area also. India, which is progressing, is not playing this game till now. They are still stuck with their poverty. They are still trying to push that through. They will have to do it, and being the largest Muslim state in 2050, we understand where this thing is going to come from. We need to capitalize on that. The other thing within the patterns that shocked me was that we have only 3 Nobel Prize winners in science. 1 from Pakistan, 1 from Egypt, 1 from Turkey. All 3 actually got their Nobel Prizes in the Western world. They were studying and working within universities abroad. None of them were in their respective countries, which saddens me because we have the population base and we can do it. So the way ahead is we need to focus on our education side. We need to build our universities. We need to start thinking and culturally understanding the world and its needs and how we can take it through publications. The journey ahead has to be future literate. We need to build on imagination, and we need to build on a future that talks about the following. We need to encourage our children and their education, which is based on encouraging problem solving. We need to have computational and mathematical robotic understanding. We need to be inquiry-based learning, and we need to master the skills not on how you learn a profession, but how you combine professions, not professions, but skills. The future is all about combination of skills and how you will develop them, and critical thinking. Once we do that, and if we can induce in our children that they have to be conscious towards unpredictability, because unpredictability is one thing that the robots will never get. The robot has to be designed to be predictable. So if we can, as humans, and we understand that we are very good at addressing unpredictability, we have a future. We have to get our policymakers, our academias, the think tanks to start connecting to each other. We need to enforce transparency. Governments can say whatever they like, but in an age of data and artificial intelligence, if you're not open, you do not allow open source, you do not allow open access, you do not allow your younger generations to play with the data that you generate, you are actually crippling your future. It is as simple as that. So corruption and digital pushback will have to automatically go, because that's how far technology will take us. You can't hide, we can't hide even today from a social media standpoint. So we have to identify from our academia standpoint all of these issues, and we have to work towards them. We in Pakistan have developed, I was the co-founder of this thing, which is called Foresight Lab, which uses different methodologies and techniques on how do we sit, remove our egos, how do we sit? And this is what makes me so happy in this August House, that we have people from different backgrounds. Imagine now if I equipped you with the right technology and we all discussed one issue, may it be health. How do we solve the health issues of Jordan? And we can all communicate. Nobody should know who is putting what input. We can experience from our experiences in a hospital to our experiences with a nurse or a doctor or any profession we like, but all of us put it together and it comes out as one agreed position, and this is what Foresight allows you to do. It takes historical data, it allows universities, experts, we go through a process, it's called real-time Delphi, and we put weightages and we see how it is looking at, and then we cross-check it with 64 other nations in the world. And it's not that we are doing it alone, 64 nations are doing it, and we are trying to position ourselves in a very simple way on how do we know. We know where we want to be, how do we get there? What is the best possible way? Allow technology to use, in use, and allow us to be open enough to be using that technology in that fashion. A dashboard of, and this is something that again was said in Jordan in 2013, when they said that it is essential to open up to benefit from modern experiences. And I was amazed when I was doing my research on Jordan that you have people who have already said this, but now we have to set the ball in motion and we have to get there. So in conclusion, we have to improve our understanding of ourselves with each other. We have to create cultures of harmony and civilization and peace. We have to adopt technology, and we have to build consciousness. If we do not realize that it is us who are going to solve the issues, then we're not going very far. And us, as every Muslim is going to be every fourth person is going to be a Muslim, it is that responsibility that we have to develop our consciousness with. And it is bringing the West into our areas, may it be the Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, or Asia. That's where the population base is going to be. We need to start understanding these patterns. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Just one. بنرحب معالي الدكتور محمد برومان وزير الشباب والثقافة. Our Minister of Youth and Culture just joined us actually, and he participated in that conference that took place in Amman in 2013. I think you had a paper that's كان عندك ورقة في هذا المؤتمر تبع الدولة الإسلامية سيدي على Islamic State كان موجود. Thank you so much. Can I switch into Arabic if you don't mind? You need the handset. Yeah. يعني أتوقع يعني هناك الكثير من الإحباطات يمكن ذكر الدكتور شاهد، وأنا ما بدي أبدأ في الإحباطات the fact that we very sad fact يمكن شغلة كثير محزنة إنه we are way behind ولسه متأخرين. يمكن هذا ممكن الانطلاق للحديث. كمان تكلم الدكتور شاهد عن الكثير من الأمور، عن استخدام عدم التطبيق المعايير بالشكل الصحيح، وهذا يذكرني يمكن بكلام قول ابن حزم الأندلسي لما قال: لا آفة على العلوم وأهلها أضر من الدخلاء فيها وهم من غير أهلها. وأعتقد الدكتور شاهد من أهلها ومن أهل هذا العلم. هذا كمان يمكن تحدث فيه الدكتور شاهد. أنا عندي كثير من الأسئلة، ولكن نبدأ باب الحوار كما عودتكم مؤسسة شومان. عندنا 45 دقيقة، بدنا ننهي الساعة 8 إن شاء الله بالوقت. المتحدث إذا كان في تعليق أو أفضل كمان أن يكون سؤال يعرف عن نفسه، ولا يتحول السؤال إلى محاضرة، يكون يعني مباشر ونستفيد من الوقت الثمين لمحاضرنا الكريم. دقيقة، تفضلي ستي.
I'm going to ask in English. Hi, my name is Reem Khouri. I'm an entrepreneur. We started actually an impact a year ago, and we use artificial intelligence to come up with different scenarios. One of the biggest challenges we have working here in the region would be access to data and access to information, and you've stressed on the importance of data and transparency. How can we address that? How can we actually work around the fact that data is not necessarily available?
نأخذ سؤال ثاني من الدكتور بستاني، تفضل.
مساء الخير. Sir, most of us in this room, and we have the Minister of Culture with us, are interested in cultural life and as well in social life. My question is about robots and artificial intelligence. How much these two facts will affect, for the future, will affect our cultural and social life as individuals? Thank you, sir.
نأخذ سؤال ثالث يمكن. الأخ هناك. سعد سفير. لا هناك نرجع لك.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
صادق العبد الله من مركز شباب السلط. سؤالي بتعلق حول مواضيع الذكاء الاصطناعي وأنظمة الروبوت. تلقينا في الجامعة الأردنية في هندسة الميكاترونكس كورسات حول هذا الموضوع AI والروبوتكس، لكن سؤالي للدكتور بالتحديد كيفية تطبيق هاي المجالات في التعليم بفعالية وليست مجرد أنه سلايدات أو محاضرات تعطى في ظل محدودية الموارد في الجامعات. أنا بتكلم على سبيل المثال الجامعة الأردنية، حتى بعض أجهزة الحاسوب غير متوفرة. فكيفية تطبيق مجالات الذكاء الاصطناعي والروبوت في ظل محدودية الموارد وتعليمها للأجيال القادمة. شكرا.
شكرا. أخونا هون تفضل.
خير. اسمي معتز الطاهر. السؤال الدكتور ذكر أكثر من مرة أعداد المسلمين. هون في فرضية إنه بما إنه هاي أعداد مسلمين تمثل بلك متجانسة، فإذا كنا بنتحدث عن تكنولوجيا إسلامية ليش ما بنقول تكنولوجيا مسيحية تطورها الغرب، تكنولوجيا هندوسية تطورها الهند. السؤال النفصل بين العلم والدين، لأنه العلم إنساني أولاً. ثانياً، والسؤال اللي بعتقده مهم، إنه إيش بنحتاج لتحضير في العقلية، وتكونوا حريصين معي، ما بتحدث عن الإسلام، بتحدث عن المسلمين. بعقلية المسلمين التي نسيت الآية الأولى اقرأ والتعليم، وتركز على ثقافة النقل وليس ثقافة العقل. كيف نصل لهذه المرحلة دون تحضير الأرضية، ولا تكون جهودنا كلها رايحة؟
شكرا أخوي معتز. الدكتور شاهد. If you want to start
Okay.
addressing the first
So
four questions.
let me start with the reverse. The last question, because I think we need to set the context right.
I think we need to define what's the Islamic world. Is it we're talking about geography or religion only?
No. I used it in the context that when the world is moving from the West to Asia and Africa, where the majority population base of the Muslims in the West is going to be significantly less, under 3% in Europe and in the US, and majority of the Muslim population, every fourth person, is going to be in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, and Asia. It takes as a human responsibility. I also brought in that the largest state, Muslim state in the world is going to be India, this is something that, as a Pakistani, I could not have emphasized more, that we need to understand humanity has all the technologies, and as we call Ahle Kitab, we are all going to be looking at humanity, and my whole objective is towards humanity. It is the responsibility that I was highlighting, that as Muslims, we need to take a responsible position of not only being, because we were. If we go back in the Abbasid era, it was the state that was running the affairs. It was the state that was tolerant. It was the state that was encouraging learning from every background, from every religion. Whoever had or could contribute towards wisdom was brought in, and we were doing it. What happened that now we can't do it? So my first ingress as a scientist was, what was it that we were doing so right that we could capture the wisdom from people who had the Roman, Persian, the Greek, all of that learning of humanity, we translated it into wisdom, and then somewhere we went wrong. So my first observation was to look at that pattern. Let's leave the religions out. I'm being very honest, I'm not a very religious man. I didn't take religion as that step. What I did was, I wanted to understand that this was an era where, what was it? And then you could read, and you can read and read, that we were very, very tolerant people. And as Muslims, we were very tolerant people. What happened? And how did we lose that grip on state? How did it become Shia, Sunni, and it went into corruption, and it went into the state failing, and it went into all other directions? So that's the first lesson we drive, that if you want to be the torchbearer, if you want humanity to progress, we then have to be and emulate ourselves as those people. So when I say that, how do we transport ourselves is first that bringing, that whole indoctrination of that thinking, that tolerance that we need to have in ourselves. And it said, Ikra, and we are really not studying. We are the worst when it comes to research, development, scientific knowledge, publications. So is it the Quran in the shelf, or is it Quran as a book of learning? And when it tells us, and obviously there is a saying that go up to China if you have to learn, why is it that we're not learning? And what is stopping us? Then I lead into the other areas of transparency and technology. And this is where your first question comes in, that in an era where everything, you open a mobile phone and you download an app because you're looking for a restaurant, it asks you immediately, oh, do I have access to your contact book? Do I have access to your GPS location? Do I have access to this? It has access to your whole life. And we readily give it. But yet when we walk into a government office, when we walk into any place, they say, oh, excuse me, by the way, you can't do this because it's top secret. What is top secret? My medical record is top secret. I want doctors to share, to know what is best happening. So this is the other era, that when we say Sadiq al-Amin, when we say we are above everything, where does this get lost in the game? And unless and until we do not follow the 3 O's. So the 2 O's are the oxygen. We need to live with the oxygen. The 3 O's are open data, open source, and open access. Any government, and I'm saying this with due respect to the Jordanian culture and everything, because I am a scientist, please treat me like one. If you do not allow access to data, you are actually mutilating your future generations. Because unless and until they do not study that data with all the tools that are available, we are not going very far. So that's as simple as that. Now, the culture and its impact, robots and things. If we can develop the human consciousness and the imagination, and our future generations are driven by virtue of knowing how to address unpredictability, the robot cannot do much. The robot only mimics what you tell it to mimic, and it does it to perfection. For it to learn, we are currently in what is called the narrow artificial intelligence. There are 3 steps above that when we get into that level. And the human body is such an amazing piece of art that when I showed you that all the data that we generate in a day, 2.5 exabytes as per today, we can keep adding it. 1 gram of human DNA has 455. We are, with nanotechnology, with synthetic biology, we are now at a position that we can take all of human learning and put it in a chip within our cells. Now, how do you drive your cells after that? You're 1 step ahead of the robot, is how your consciousness will work. And I will take you back in history. Go and read about the Egyptian philosophers. What did they do? They sat and thought through things, and it is from them that the Greeks and the Romans learned about the art of humans and philosophy. We will go into that era. We will have that intellectual level. We will have the time to think. The machine age actually produced us into the mechanical, robotic life. Once we have technology in our control, which we do, we can then move to the next level of having that mentology to take on, and it's a different subject. Limited resources. Jordan is not the only place which has limited resources, and like I said, there are 2-3 fundamental things that the state has to do for encouraging its universities and its people. One is to give them access to data. There was another slide that I showed you. What are the humanities' 15 challenges? As Jordanians, you must identify in which region, what is your challenge? Based on that challenge, is it water? Is it something else? Whatever, food security, you have to identify your local challenges. Based on those challenges, then your professors need to understand where and how in the global community are we addressing those challenges? And then how are we adopting technologies? This is a process, thanks to internet, bandwidth, broadband, you can get access to tons and tons of data. But it's international data. Unless and until you don't supplement it with your local data, you will not benefit out of it. So, yes, universities need to understand that they need to look at databases which are international because they are easily accessible, and they want you to look at it because they are studying you. Somebody asked me the other day, oh, by the way, we do social media monitoring, and we're on top of everything. And I said, yeah, you're helping the Western world tell them exactly how you think. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, where do you buy the feed? Where do you buy the Twitter feed from? Where do you buy the Facebook tweet feed from? Where do you buy the Instagram feed from? All of these feeds actually tell you about you, and how you're looking at that problem is how they are looking at you, how they are solving the problem. So you're actually doing free work for them. Oh, I didn't think of it that way. So, well, let's take it to another level. Now let's look at China, and let's look at where the state is facilitating its private sector, and look at where they are. If you think social media and monitoring of social media and feeds from social media is a challenge, I'll take one company, Alibaba. It has access to 2 billion people buying globally, 180 countries, 18 languages. They do a financial transaction of 250,000 in 1 second. They can deliver a product in 53 minutes. Their logistics level, and by the way, Jack Ma very proudly claims by 2030, he will be the first company in the world to be the 5th largest economy of the world, $1 trillion. Now you say, whoa, how is this guy in the private sector? You just said, Dr. Shahid, that the state is not really, the state needs to invest, and that's where the capitalism is not, and now you're promoting Jack Ma. No. Jack Ma brought poverty out of China. He made every Chinese in the local dhaba to make products that they can sell abroad. So he made the e-commerce platform. He did that. What is the Chinese government doing now? One road, one belt. One belt, one road. Call it whichever way you like. The Belt and Road Initiative, the Infrastructure Development Bank. 68 countries building infrastructure. Why do you need infrastructure, and why are Chinese coming and putting down $4 trillion in infrastructure in 68 countries? Is because their goods have to be delivered. So when you will order on your mobile phone something which is in China or wherever they find the best value add, it needs to be delivered. And unless and until you do not have the right transportation mechanism, it won't be delivered. So it's hand in glove. One is developing one side, the other is developing others, and they will maintain a price differential with a value add from anybody. And we can come up with any laws we want. The human will always go for what is the best quality, where can I get it from, and how fast can you deliver it. You can come up with any legislation you want, you can do anything. It won't work like that. That is how future will be run.
Thank you, Dr. Shahid. It's very assuring that telling us and confirming that the artificial intelligence won't handicap humanity. But we'll take 4 further questions as well. ناخذنا الجانب هانية تفضلي. Gender equality خلينا شوي بعدين بنيجيك. تفضلي.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Hania Barqawi. I'm from Shoman Foundation. Actually, Dr. Shahid, I was really following your presentation and I enjoyed it very much and I immediately fell in love with you. And after that, immediately, I hated you for making me that frustrated and that disappointed. So my question to you is, challenges identified, conferences, they go to conferences, money spent, initiatives created, committees formed, and almost nothing. So my question to you is, how do we translate all this knowledge in a practical way? What do we need to do? Where do we start on the ground for real and not in theory? And who's responsible for the change? Who owns the change?
شكرا
Thank you.
هانية. تفضلي سيدي.
يعطيك العافية. نضال بيطار من جمعية شركات تقنية المعلومات والاتصالات إنتاج. شكرا كثير دكتور على المحاضرة والمعلومات كثير مهمة. الموضوع أعتقد كثير مهم بصراحة، ازدهار العالم الإسلامي خلال الانفتاح على الابتكار والتكنولوجيا. بنحكي على ابتكار، احنا طبعا انا اعتقد السبب اللي احنا واصلين له بالمرحله الحاليه اللي تفضلت حضرتك وعرضته هو انه يعني مش قادرين احنا نفكر. احنا عم بيكون في عندنا قمع لاي واحد بده يفكر اوت اوف ذا بوكس. عندنا كثير تابوز او محرمات ممنوع نفكر فيها، ممنوع ننتقد اي شيء، يعني نتساءل. بحكي على محرمات أنا إن كانت دينية أو غير دينية، وما عم بحكي على قرآن كريم، أنا عم بحكي على حتى ممنوع ننتقد فقهاء ناس زينا زيهم إن كان بالعصر الحالي أو إن كان من 1400 سنة. إحنا عم بتكون عندنا مشاكل كثير، ممنوع أنتقد اللي بحكيه أستاذ الدين، وأستاذ الدين ممكن بحكي إشي غلط بالدين نفسه. يعني فإحنا صار عندنا عقدة كبيرة كجيل جديد أو الجيل الحالي الموجود أو اللي قبله، إنه ممنوع يفكر، ممنوع ينتقد، ممنوع يناقش، وبحكي بكثير أشياء. يعني أنا بدي أحكي على مثل صار معي وأنا بالابتدائي على سبيل المثال الحصر.
يعني السنة الماضية هاي.
لا يعني
كمل
يعني
اختصر الله يرضى عليك.
في درس الدين في آية بتقول إن الله عنده علم الساعة وينزل الغيث ويعلم ما في الأرحام.
صحيح.
هلا انا وقتها يعني كان بهذا الدرس، فانا سالت، كانت والدتي حامل، فسالت الاستاذ يعني انا ما بعرف انه هذا رح يكون ولد ولا بنت. فاستاذ الدين قال لا حرام، ما حدا ممكن يعرف ايش هذا غير الله، الله الوحيد اللي بيعرف انه هذا ولد ولا بنت. بعديها بقى كم من سنه طلع في اجهزه بتقدر تعرف انه هذا ولد او بنت،
مثل الفلك ورمضان وغيرها.
فهذه هي المشكله الاساسيه. اعتقد اذا قدرنا نخلص من هاي القصص بالتعليم بالمناهج ممكن نقدر نوصل. وشكرا.
شكرا اخوي نضال. الست ديما بيبي تفضلي. نوزع هيك معلش ندور ونرجع لك.
Thank you so much, Shahid.
Another Eisenhower Fellow.
So my question is related to artificial intelligence and the connection to emotional intelligence. So we know when we hear that probably the most important talent today for success is emotional intelligence. Is this in any way a limitation for the success and growth and prosperity of robots? And how is, I mean, what is, excuse my ignorance, but how are robots emotionally intelligent and how could they be?
طيب مين من الجهة الثانية هون؟ الأستاذ شهم الور ولا بنبدي عليك هناك وبنرجع لك لينا.
كل الشكر دكتور عمر ودكتور شاهد.
لينا بوديري.
لينا البوديري معكم. أنا بس my background Dr. Shahid is in sociology and jurisprudence legal thought. And I have had a very thorough and very conservative Islamic upbringing, not from my family, but the education system was a very thorough Islamic upbringing. And I understand the dichotomy of the Muslim person at this moment in time, because we have, on top of what you mentioned about being at the bottom of the research, we have had Daesh come up, we have Islamophobia now, we have so many problems, and every single Muslim person at this moment is in a very big confusion. Now, I think, and I'm a firm believer, and I'm working on this on the ground, grassroots, and I'm actually working to take out all of the education, modern education, from the Quran and the Sunnah, and find the modern research that exemplifies it. And it is something that is amazing, because in our religion, in our true Islam, critical thinking is encouraged. The big picture, the bigger framework is encouraged. Many of the modern educational stances that are being used now in the most advanced societies are found in our religion, except we have a very archaic and a very strict, like the gentleman mentioned, taboos. We are not meant to do critical thinking when in fact we can. So at this moment in time, I think we have to concentrate on affirming the self-esteem and worth for the Muslim, especially the Arab, because we have a direct contact with the Quran in the language. And everybody has a possibility to be able to adjust their education. We have a huge social capital in our Muslim individual, with a very a great possibility to change our mindsets from a rote learning into a critical thinker.
Much more critical thinking. شكرا ستي، أزعجناك لينا. طبعا احنا سعيدين جدا انه يتم الاقتباس من قامة أردنية يعني وعالم الدكتور منيف الزعبي في السلايدز، يعني انبسطنا كثير بوجوده معنا، ويمكن عنده سؤال بعدين. خلينا نجاوب على الأربعة هذول وبعدين نبدأ بشاهد الدفعة الثالثة والأخيرة. شاهد, if you can answer the 4 questions, then we'll move to the other.
So let me start with the first one. Is how can we encourage that we don't do these so-called conferences and talks, and how can we start implementing things? The reason why I was rushing through patterns is that we can only learn and then use the forward-looking things and the backward and say, what is it that we need to do? So the first thing that I was trying to establish was that we have to understand that wisdom can only come to us if we are tolerant and we understand how to address it. Now, in an era where technology is moving at the pace it is very easy to develop fake news, and that is the future warfare that is more dangerous than the weaponization or anything that we are talking about. The second thing is, unfortunately, we as Muslim states, majority of us, were ruled by a Western state at some point or the other. When we were ruled by them, they left legislation with us that we still follow and we still feel is the God's gift to us. They gave us the infrastructure, they gave us everything else, and we are actually moving on in a sequential manner while technology is moving at a pace where it is doubling every 12 months. And we are still referring to, if it is the law, like in Pakistan, let's take Pakistan, the official language is still English. In the court, the decision is even written in Urdu, but the final decision in the Supreme Court and the High Court is still written in English because we were ruled by them till 1947. So this is the first thing that we have to understand. In our schooling curriculums, and there was a second thing that you were mentioning, that we have to go back and we have to go to the root. Let's take a simple example of modern day. This one guy goes nuts, goes to 2 mosques and kills 48 people. 38-year-old New Zealand's Prime Minister changes the entire perception of the world towards New Zealand. They start wearing the scarf, they start going to mosques, they start allowing, in their assemblies things. What greater tolerance can we see than that? And the world is showing us that if you are tolerant, you can literally remove what is being stamped on us as our fault. I mean, imagine this was reverse, that we did it and it was, how would we tackle it? How did she tackle it? How did every citizen in New Zealand tackle it? It is mind-blowing. They are standing there. We recently had a gentleman from New Zealand, Pakistan. Wherever he went, I could not find one senior dignitary of the country not appreciate what his prime minister. She's 38 years old. How she changed the perception. So it is within us. We have to stop worrying about somebody from the outside will come and fix it. How we know our own culture, how we know our own upbringing. We may be very good practicing Muslims, we may not be very good practicing Muslims. We are, as Muslims, we understand and we were told to accept all the books of religion. What is it all about? What is Islam? Peace. Now, how do we get that ingrained in our children, that there are 2 things that they have to do? One is to be driven by imagination, to do good for humanity, and to understand that humanity will only progress if you have peace. Now, there is a flip side to this. Every 12 years, we are adding 1 billion people. So if you think it is bad right now, just imagine when we will be 9 billion or 10 billion people. What will happen? I can narrate a story to you where I see hope. So I was asked to address kids of 8th grade in a welfare school in Pakistan. It was in the suburbs of Lahore. I was very busy. I didn't have time. But the man who actually has worked in mentology in Pakistan, I respect him. He's suffering from cancer. I could not say no to him. I said, what do you want me to do? He says, I run this school. I want you to go, meet the kids, and tell me, how do you find it is happening? I can't go. I want you to go, because if you tell me, I will keep giving them money. Now, that's like serious responsibility. So I go, the principal meets me and says, oh, by the way, I have already told the students that you are Dr. Shahid Mahmud, you've done this, and AI and robotics and everything else. And I walk in and they're sitting on the floor. And they're from 8th grade, so they're kids. And my Urdu is not the greatest Urdu to speak at that level, and you translate AI into that level. But I did whatever I could. But what fascinated me, and this is where the hope comes in, what fascinated me was after I spoke to them for 40 minutes, I said, okay, so how much have you got in AI and robotics? Well, what is it that you want to... So this kid raises his hand, he says, by the way, we will change in our factories, we will have robots and they're going to produce things. And I said, we're 210 million people, we still don't have jobs. If you bring in the robots, what is going to happen? And immediately another kid raises his hand. He says, by the way, we will use technology where the human life is endangered. And I said, check. man, these guys are going places. Okay? I am honestly telling you, I am on the faculty of 25 universities in Pakistan. We have 200 universities. I never got that answer from a university student.
Wow.
Okay? But that gives you hope. So if we can understand the patterns, we can have a good hold on the technology, we become honest and we open up, we move into that direction. So the taboos have to go. We need to learn what was it that the Abbasites were doing that encouraged everybody of wisdom to come to them. We need to understand that and we need to start applying that. Now, coming back to the emotional AI side, this is a debate that can go on. But I can assure you, I was at MISC and I was asked to present something and I said, how can I do anything? If I had lived my entire life in Saudi Arabia, I would have never got a nationality. But you just gave it to the first female robot with AI driven and she got Saudi nationality. I meant it in a joke, okay? So we can train the robots to doing things and they will keep improving. But it is the human augmentation of what people are not getting, and I would like you and people to research this, is synthetic biology. Synthetic biology is the real game. AI and nanotechnologies, there are several technologies. There's 3D printing is doing revolution, everything is doing revolution. I accept all of that. Synthetic biology is coming because of AI and nanotechnology, combination of two through the human mind. Synthetic biology tells you how to develop DNA from the best of the qualities of different things and how you put it together. That will always keep us ahead from an emotional standpoint and everything else. The robots cannot do that at the right moment because they're not understanding the human body. They are understanding logic taught to them by humans. But the human mind, the unpredictability that I was talking about, the consciousness that I was talking about, within us, we always have this consciousness of, am I doing right or wrong? We all immediately know we're doing right or wrong. But it is how we drive that as a collective. And that's where the emotional intelligence. So in very simple words, we don't have to worry about it. I can assure you with all the knowledge that I have as of today, it's a thing that will take years and years of research to get to that level.
Moving to Alina's question maybe. خلاص covered. Okay, we have time to take a few questions. شاهد من الور تفضل سيدي.
Thanks very much for your lecture. Quick question. We heard about a year ago about the Singaporean model and how they reformed education with a focus in primary school on math, science, and English. And this was 50 years ago. The world has changed a lot. You were speaking a lot about nanotechnology, AI. Can you tell us a little bit how do you think schools, especially at the primary level, should incorporate these ideas? How do we revolutionize our educational system so that we inculcate our students with these skills for the 21st century? Thank you.
دكتور مني تفضل وبعدين في سعادة السفير مازن الحمود. لا موجود وفي ناخذ 4 أسئلة سيدي. أنا رفعت إيدك اليسار أنا فكرت اليمين اليسار هيك اليمين للسؤال. تفضل دكتور.
Thank you Dr. Shahid for your lecture and thank you for citing something I said a few years ago about the state of the culture of science in the Islamic world. I think if I'm to divide up your lecture into headings, I would try and do that. You talked about the history of Islamic science. You talked about demography and economics. You talked about the science and technology landscape in the Islamic world. And then you talked about artificial intelligence as a possible tool to help Islamic countries achieve development and economic prosperity. I think the underlying problem in many countries of the Islamic world is really cultural. This is one of the answers that I came up with over many years of research, in that we have a problem when it comes to the culture of science in the Islamic world. The majority of Muslims, sadly, for a variety of reasons, are today lack culture of science in their thinking and in their everyday life. Very big subject, but this is the headline. And also culture of innovation. We do not really realize or understand what innovation is, even if we do innovate ourselves, but we have a problem when it comes to translating innovation into goods and services and solutions to problems that we face. So I think the problem lies in trying to bridge this divide. This is my premise. I mean, you may agree or disagree with this, but the problem lies in us trying to bridge this divide in developing mass culture of science at the societal level so that people appreciate what science can do for themselves. Develop a culture of precision. The culture of precision in many Arab and Muslim societies is lacking, unfortunately. The culture of respect for time is not there. Except for countries that have a tradition of tool making and traditional industries, we have a problem when it comes to culture of science. Culture of innovation, yes, education, as mentioned by the previous speaker, is one tool to develop this culture of innovation. But I think we need to really address this on a massive scale, to really rekindle the culture, the environment you talked about during the Islamic Golden Age of people innovating in all walks of life. Perhaps you can add to this or propose a roadmap as to how we can achieve this. And sorry to have taken
لا
so
شكرا
long.
دكتور. عندنا آخر 3 أسئلة بسرعة عند مدام داليا. بتحبي تحكي شيء؟ دوميستيك الآن. وعندنا سؤالين هناك بس خلاص تفضلي داليا. Make it short.
I found it all very insightful, but in particular there were 2 main points that you kind of, not really
related.
gave details to. One is related to the distinction between robots and humans, and you said that dealing with unpredictability is what distinguishes humans. And as a child psychologist, that totally resonated with me because we feel that resilience is the single most significant quality for success and dealing with challenges and changes in a sudden way. So I want you to elaborate more on that in terms of what you've seen and what you've experienced in educational programs that address such an issue, such a developing demand, in particular also referencing what you said about learning in order to be able to combine skills as opposed to learning in order to be able to hold a profession. So I'd like you to address both. And then I had a very positive ending to your slideshow when you kind of referred us back to the golden age. There is an initiative that was called 1001 Inventions that was trying to kind of rebuild the pride of Arab children in what was seen as scientific advances. And this is something that we should actually look more into as one of the tools for education. Thank you.
أمنت حالي ما بنام بالكراج اليوم يعني بالبيت حكون. طيب آخر سؤالين هناك ستي. عرف حالك الله يخليكم بسرعة.
Engineering. سؤالي للدكتور، احنا لما حكينا عن الثري برنسبل الثري او اوبن داتا واوبن ريسورس واوبن اكسس، احنا كشباب عندنا النولج وعندنا العلم يعني عن الاي اي، عن فيتشر تكنولوجي، الاي او تي، كيف ممكن ان ننتقل من مرحله العلم للتطبيق، التطبيق الحقيقي، التطبيق الفعلي لهاي الفيتشر؟ التكنولوجي. وسؤالي كمان إذا في من خلال دراسته إذا كان في تطبيقات فعلية للدكتور ويعطيك
شكرا مالك. السؤال الأخير تفضل أستاذنا.
Hello, my name is Jabir Al-Nouri. My question, I'm very happy that my question will be the last one. I will summarize it. I'm a US graduate. I had a degree in engineering and I had a master's degree. And we were among the best students in our schools within the foreign students. Now, my question is that not only in Jordan, but in the area that's coming from the west, from the Maghreb to the Pakistan or to Pakistan, the two things that makes you in the country very successful. One is if you have the right contacts, if you can pull up strings very well, and the second thing is that if you can find your way around without your education. So how can we offset this? As you have seen and you've mentioned the USA, the best place in the USA in San Francisco. It is gathered by the best students from the ITT in India. We are exporting the best of the best, the cream of the cream of our youngers in these countries. What's your idea about this? Thank you.
Dr. Shahid, can you brief?
Okay, so I have 6 questions. I'll try and summarize them.
Yeah, you're
Starting
right.
from how the youth in Singapore is being trained. The question is fairly simple. So recently I was asked to speak on vocational training and how do we get trainings done and what we need to look at. And I was going through data. Being a scientist, we only look at data. So I was completely taken aback. And we had this debate with the Germans, the Swiss, the British system, and this was at the EU Parliament. And I said, can you please tell me on one particular point, that today, if we are looking at the Chinese and the Indians as successful people because they are progressing and they're going to be the superpowers and they're doing things. But have you ever done any analysis on how much time these students are spending in school? So the European kids and the rest of the world is spending approximately 1,085 hours per year in a school for their 12 years of first schooling. The Chinese, on the other hand, is spending 2,100 hours. So I asked them, I said, forget about what he learned. He can be the dumbest kid because he had to go 2,100 hours and you were the smartest people and you had to be 1,085 hours. My question is that how do you replace in his DNA the power or the understanding of working hard? Because what you did in 12 years, he has done in the same 12 years, 24 years. So when he stands in front of you or our kids, what do I tell my kid? That this guy is an idiot? Or he hasn't worked hard enough? Or he doesn't have a skill set which is beyond his educational primitive? And then he doesn't have access to data? I just shared with you what Alibaba is doing. If we have an analysis of what your buying strength is of 2 billion people, forget social media. I can tell you exactly which economies are going to do what, which startups are going to do what, how are they going to go, which direction. How do I supplement all of this back into the system? So then it leads me to the other thing. It's the culture, and unfortunately, and I'm so glad that you are here, unfortunately, what I think we lost in the games of where we were and where we are now and why we have to look at it is a twofold issue. It's that understanding of our own cultures, and it is understanding of the trust deficit that we have evolved around us. Now, in an era where social media is playing fake news, where social media can now maneuver your thinking and being a psychologist, I mean, you would understand this. on how we can transform the wrong image to our future generations, and it's anchored at what? One of the biggest challenges that I have as an AI guy is religions were always there, and please don't take me being a kafir here, because this is how I look at life and I look at patterns. If religions, what were the earlier religions? The earlier religions were, we were all afraid of animals because we had to tackle with animals because that was the biggest threat. Then when we got into the agri-economy, all the religions were based on one God and how we're going about it. When our children challenge you on Lord Google and say, by the way, Dad, what is the answer to this? And you give them an answer, and he says, no, but Google says this. Okay? Now, if that is the ethics paradigm, okay, that I think the only way we have to bring that back is that we did have the capacity to develop wisdom by learning from each other and being tolerant. We now need to cross-verify, especially in the era of fake news. And this is your biggest ingredient you have to give to the children. More than anything else, understanding, obviously, I said, they have to start learning to do problem solving. They cannot do mucking and learning and, the Urdu word, I have two gentlemen from Pakistan here. There is a classic Urdu word for doing this. And that is that you actually memorize the whole paper, because it's the score that will count on how you scored. It has got nothing to do with development of imagination. That is what we are being taught. We have to understand that there will be 3 billion self-employed people. What will be the self-employment driven by? It's the skills. If I know enough skills, I can then trade those skills with the other people. Like if I'm an AI guy, I know how to clean up your computer, I can fix your computer, I can give you an application that can do things, I can write an algorithm that will make your life easier. But I cannot go and fix my car. If there is a mechanical fault in my car, I may read a manual and may fix it to some extent, but do I have the time? Or it's a plumbing job that I have to do. Or it is something that broke as wood and I have to do carpentry. It is these skills that you will develop with the tools that AI will offer you, that you will then equip yourselves to better in-cash in the years to come. It will not be single professions. Normal life of a company was 67 years, now it's 15 years. A person who goes to school as of today, I can assure you, will have to do 8 degrees to stay current, if you take it from a degree standpoint. Or he will need to know at least 8 or 9 skills to survive as his livelihood. Robots and humans, the learning skills and what we were trying to do. Unless and until the 1000, the scientific thing, unless and until we do not build in our younger generation, in our youth, the confidence that we and our elders were there and we had done it, the fake news and Lord Google will teach them everything else, because they just don't know. I mean, how many movies can we take our kids to where they are taught about how we even find our way? The best astronomy, the best in medical sciences, the best in everything, we have them in museums, but where are the games or where is that augmented reality that teaches them? And the underline is the same, cultural tolerance. It is tolerance of every human that we need to start understanding and inculcating, that then will give them that confidence. The kids are there. I mean, the kids know they will pick up things. We don't need to make more brick and mortar kind of things. They can learn offline, they can experience things, and then they will come to their local issues. Local issues come in, let's take it as a simple case. All our families, may they be from Pakistan or from Jordan or from the region, if the father of the house says, this is what is going to happen, man, it is a tough decision. At least in my age group, I can tell you. If my father said I had to go to an engineering university, I had to go to an engineering, khalas. It was not going to happen, okay? We still, in the paradigm of respect of our elders, are still being brought up like that. But yet, when it comes to the wisdom being parted from the elders, is the missing link. And that is where we need to build, may they be from the libraries to anything and everything, is that we need to incorporate within ourselves the wisdom. The 3 O's, I said this very blatantly, unless and until the government doesn't understand, it can be any government in the world, that they do not provide openness and access to data. Any kid who is equipped with the latest technology, AI tools or anything, will not be able to solve your local problems. It will be always the Western world who will solve your local problems because they're reading you off the social media, which is not true. Social media alone gives you some insight, but there are other insights that we need. Engineering and successful startups in education. I was fortunate to go to the Hussein University, the business park today. And my only question to them was, how many domain specialists do you have within the vicinity that can teach you about what their challenges are within their domains? Secondly, what within those domains are your local problems that have been brought up to you so that you can make a startup? Because unless and until you don't have the two, you're not moving in the right direction. You will solve problems that are being solved across the world for different communities, but for your own selves, we need to understand these things. Students, what am I missing?
I think you have covered everything.
So, in conclusion, the beauty of sessions like this is to start thinking. It's to use and trigger that imagination. We have so much acumen in this room, and I'm grateful to Shoman Foundation and Valentina to be here, and Omar.
Shukran.
Is to give us this opportunity to start talking. It is to start thinking that we need to address this, especially when we understand our own environments much better than anybody who's coming from abroad to try and understand it. They will make their judgment calls as per their background, as per their experiences. But how we look at it ourselves is completely a different domain, and this is what we have to leave for our younger generations. Unless and until we don't start working on this, we are not doing justice to our next generations. And I thank you for that.
Thank you so much. باسمكم جميعا وباسم مؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان نشكر ضيفنا الكريم دكتور شاهد محمود على هذه الأمسية الثرية بالنقاش والمعلومات الغنية، وشكرا لوجودكم. دمتم بخير.